you know?
You know?
What about me?
What about me?
How does this affect me? But here's the most important question.
What about me?
How does this impact me?
What's in it for me? What's
Uh,
up, everybody?
What's up? What's up,
Welcome
beautiful
back.
people? I love you all.
What's up, Brian?
Good vibes only. Good vibes only here. You're beautiful. Cleveland. Hello from Cleveland. Hello from Austin. Hello from Switzerland. Hello from New York. That's what I'm talking about, baby.
Dirty Jersey.
Jersey.
Dirty Jersey.
Somebody say dirty Jersey? You didn't say that.
No, someone did, though.
Oh, okay. New Mexico. South Pasadena. Arkansas. Bronx. Hey guys. Reminder to change your chat settings to everyone. Welcome, welcome. We're gonna wait a few minutes until everybody has a chance to kind of come into the session here. But just a reminder to set your chat settings to everyone. Little blue box, say hosts and panelists. Change that over to the everyone setting. Okay.
On the screen now, right?
Yep. Yes, sir. I can see the screen. We got a cool cool time planned for you today.
Oh, yeah.
Doing some instrumental mixing today. We're gonna touch some of those. Although Justin did such a good job, I don't even know how much we're gonna need to do. We'll
Someone
see.
asked me a question about my studio, and I missed it, and I apologize if you want to ask again. I looked back, but I couldn't see it.
Yeah, we are gonna have a dope sesh today, Nathan. That's right, baby.
Sebastian, hang tight. Maybe next month could be a special announcement on that.
Mm-hmm. Could be.
Could be an epic event in the works. Merely a few weeks away from now.
Wah, wah. I'll be back in just a moment. I'm gonna get some more coffee.
Insert countdown. Make sure you check out the screen. I got some information on there for everybody to go through before we begin. Morning, Nick. How you doing, man? Right on, Tremaine. If you've done everything on the page I'm sharing with you, make sure you got a good cup of coffee or something to get you going. What's up, Alan? What's up, Alphonse? Just practicing the Joe. You just practicing the assignment from yesterday? What were you practicing? Practicing your instrument? What's up, Caden? It's going good, man. Me too, Hassan. Right on. Good job.
Hi. What did I miss?
Only if you refer to me as evil, Dr. Lovelace, from what was it? What movie was that?
Dr. Evil?
No, there was an evil Dr. Lovelace in a Will Smith movie, I believe. Wild Wild West. Yeah, that's it. I don't
Oh,
think
good old Slap Happy Smith.
I don't think I saw it, but I've heard of it.
Oh, thanks for saying that, Chris. I'm glad. I'm glad you're, hopefully you're getting some light bulb moments. Chris says this is the best educational training I've been on in a long time. Awesome.
We live to serve.
Yes, yes.
Anyone here from Kansas? You can sign the school group. I was going to give a sorry about your Jayhawks brag, but it doesn't look like anyone's from Kansas anyway.
Oh, Tatiana, that's sweet to say. That's awesome. You guys are the best. First time I feel like I can do this and faster than I thought. Yes. Yes. That's what we want you to get out of this is the confidence that you need to just move, to make progress and move forward and create that momentum for yourself. Be inspired, be motivated, and just really kind of see that the bucket isn't that deep. It does go deep. Music production goes deep and it gets technical, but if you focus on some like really kind of like more simple core concepts, that's the foundation for everything else. And it can be a little less overwhelming than you may have thought. That's the point anyway. You leave these last 3 days and it's less overwhelming than it was when you joined us. you know
Yeah, who's amazed how much you can do with volume? I think it's so powerful. Often looked over. Mixing doesn't have to be, something that's overwhelming and so complex that it seems like rocket science. In fact, we focus so much in our 2-year program on just the basic foundation tools. It's not there's no special plugin or some crazy technique that is, you know, only a few people know to getting good mixes. It's really just mastery over the simple tools, having a great room, having great ears, learning to hear this stuff. But it really isn't rocket science. And that just goes to show when you just work with volume and you take something as far as we took it yesterday, just with volume. It's evident of that. Yeah. You can still watch yesterday if you join that school group that's listed on the screen there. You can go back and watch the replays.
I'll go ahead and spam it in the chat a couple times.
If you're not in school, you should hop in there. I mean, it's just a resource for you. It's not magic, but yeah, separate projects, separate sessions for production and then mixing and then mastering. Why do we do that? Anyone know? Thanks, DJ. Rec.
What was the question?
Yeah, why do we have separate sessions for production, mixing, and mastering?
Mm-mm.
Yep. I see the two top answers are like commitment and mindset, and I agree with both of those. There's other reasons, but the two top ones are commitment. You're committing to the production, and you're entering a different mindset for mixing, which isn't production anymore. So if you're tempted by all the production stuff still being there and all those tools still being there, it's too easy to get distracted. And then you go back into production mode again and you've lost the mixing mindset. Now you're taking yourself out of it. Things start to get convoluted. You start listening too much. You start rabbit holing. Days turn into weeks, turn into months. It's just a different mindset and you have to kind of commit. And same thing with the master. Don't master in your mix session. Bounce it out again. Use the tools properly on a stereo file in the end. That's how you get to the highest level. We only know this because we've done it. I spent,
But we only know this because we've done it wrong.
that's what I mean. We've made all the mistakes.
We've screwed up so much that you don't have to.
So true. I spent 10 years doing things wrong, not getting to my truest potential of what I was capable of, and not making any money earlier in my career. There's a better way. It's not a road for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
Oh, it's time to go. Sorry, guys. We're 1 minute over. You guys all ready to rock? One's in chat. If you're ready to go,
I'm going to put a 1 in the chat.
I just changed some of the lesson today. The
You
first
did?
time I'll teach some of this stuff today. I just had a
Oh, wow. Nice.
little inspiration. So we'll talk about a couple things we haven't ever talked about on a Fix the Mix before.
I can't wait.
All right. Everyone done everything on the screen? Very
1,
cool.
1, 1, 1, 1. Ready to go.
Welcome back. Sorry, I need to minimize some of these screens. Welcome back, though. Fix the Mix Challenge, day 2. You're the serious ones. You're coming back for more. I respect that. Thanks for being here. If you missed yesterday introductions, my name's Caleb Lovelace, Director of Education for Mastering.com. We build programs. We have a school. We help the modern producer engineer navigate this new industry, and we try our very best to put people on the map, and have had a lot of success with our students working for all sorts of A-list artists and major companies, and we're very proud of that. We also have Mr. Jake Codeweiss. He's one of the mentors. He helps me build programs. He's very talented. He's a producer engineer. He's been in the sync world. He's an incredible teacher. If you saw yesterday, you know he knows how to teach this stuff and make sense out of complex issues and make them very simple. So thankful to have Jake here with us today as well.
Thank you, Caleb.
We also want to talk about our sponsor, Waves. Waves plugins. They help make this free for y'all. So shout out to Waves. They're coming in, stepping up so that we can spend as much time as possible with y'all to give you a ton of information. They make great plugins. I always say, and we're very fair about this, doesn't matter what you use. There's powerful tools in your DAW, but they do make some great plugins too, and we should support people that support us.
One of my favorite plugins of all time comes from Waves. Actually, two of my favorite plugins of all time. Wait. 3 of my favorite plugins of all time.
Tell me more. Tell me more, Jake.
I think that's it.
What are they?
Nope. You're
You're
just
not
gonna have to wait. Gonna have to wait and see.
Are you going to use all 3 of them today?
Maybe I'll just use 1 or 2, and you'll have to wait till day 3 to see the rest of the top list.
I feel like you got me going and then just left me hanging.
We'll see. Just stick around.
It was like a hot date that didn't work out. All right.
Just stick around. I might call you in the middle of the night.
Day one action items. Hopefully, y'all had some time to do this. This was for your own good. I mean, we talked about some principles yesterday. We went into a demonstration. We showed you what we were talking about, and then we gave you we posted multi tracks, right? Did we use the same song, or what did we do, Jake?
Justin, oh man, Justin was nice enough to let us use the multi tracks for this song.
Yeah,
Guys, say thank you to Justin
it's very cool. It's very cool.
because yeah, he did a really, really cool thing. This song isn't released yet. He hasn't even released this track yet. So the fact that you now have access to the multi tracks to practice all of this stuff on is just such a huge thing, man. So thank you so much. We're all very, very grateful for you.
That's very cool,
Yeah.
Justin. And everyone be respectful to those. Don't share those around. If you're gonna do a remix or something on that, reach out to Justin, get that cleared. And don't do that till the song's officially released. But that's very cool, Justin, that we can follow along and practice on this stuff. It was a great track. It is a great track. So you're supposed to build a project, get everything organized properly, get everything set up, gain stage, like we showed yesterday, to between -10 and -20. And then you do the volume only mix. You bring all your faders down to -infinity and you volume balance your session to the best of your ability, only using volume panning, no plugins allowed, none at all. Did any of you do that? One's in chat if you had a chance to actually do that.
I did it yesterday,
You did?
Caleb. I did the homework.
I had to film some commercials yesterday, so I didn't do it,
Oh,
but
you did.
did
Okay.
film commercials.
Okay. All right.
Well, good job if you did it, and if not, and your DAW ate your homework, catch up. You can still do that starting tonight. Some big picture concepts from day one, the power of volume, like we said, but also the power of intention, right? We're working with a ton of intention. We're compartmentalizing the process. We're going in and we're seeing how far we can push things with our most powerful tool, which is volume. We're being very intentional about where we place things in the 3 dimensions of space. But we're also taking notes. You saw Jake take a bunch of notes yesterday about things that he wasn't able to solve with volume alone. And that gives us more intention today as we go in and start using those frequency and dynamics tools, the spatial tools. You have a place to start. You know what stuff you weren't able to solve with volume. You were in it, you were hearing it, you've left a note, you were kind to your future self, you left a note for today. So you start with and go in with a bunch more intention today as well. And that's huge. It de-stresses the process. It gives it direction. And that's really valuable. And everything, all of this using volume and intention, it's allowing you to be more efficient and work with more precision. I'll tell you this, when I work with intermediate students, so much of what we're trying to do is just speed up their process. We're giving them the instincts over. That's why we spend so much time with those essential tools, those basic tools, because once you become a total wizard, a ninja with those, it speeds up your whole process. You're able to work 10 times faster, and that allows you to have more, more objective ears, fresher ears through the entire process. So much of progress past that intermediate plateau that we bump into so much is really just getting more efficient so that you can have great direction, great mindset, and get to where you want to go faster with fresher ears. It's that's a lot of what happens between intermediate and advanced. We also talked about end in mind perspectives. So the end of yesterday, if you missed that, go back and watch the video. But we started talking about mastering tools and mastering mindset. So a lot of people think about, the other direction. They're thinking about the creative stuff. They're thinking about how to capture stuff at the source really well, but we don't think about what we're handing off to the mastering engineer. What matters to them? What enables them to make a really great master? What we found is that knowledge, that information, that understanding actually guides us in our mixing, even in the way we produce things. If we can learn to think with the end in mind, then you realize that every step you make along the way leads up to it being magic or not in the end. There's something that happens when a mastering engineer applies that final limiter and puts a bunch of energy into the song. All the good stuff that you did all along through the process comes to life, and all the bad things you did throughout the entire process become much more apparent. If you can have that perspective about what is going to happen in the end, you can prepare better to take things further when you have more control over it in production and mixing. We also talked about frequency analyzer as a tool that a mastering engineer uses that you can use in the mix. We talked about balance. Why do we use frequency analyzers? Well, we're looking for balance in the track. The speakers that we listen to music on like balance. They like things to not be muddled or oversaturated in certain frequencies. It helps them translate and transmit and portray the music more accurately and better. The experience for the listener is better. So we're checking balance and we're making choices based upon not just with our ears, but also connecting to what we're seeing with our eyes. And we're making decisions based upon both, which can be very valuable, especially while you're learning. So hopefully you watch that. And if not, you can go back and watch that. Goals for today: to understand better when and why to use to control frequencies. Okay, why do we do that? When do we do that? And same thing for dynamics. When do we control those and why? Most importantly, the why behind why we control dynamics. And then also spatial processing. This is such a mystery for so many people, how to really make things sound great with spatial processing. It's often overused, often underused, hard to get right. How do we do that? And then we'll talk a little bit more about the mastering mindset. I'm going to give you some more tools like I did yesterday with the frequency analyzer. We're going to learn some more tools today that can help you in the mix prepare better for giving the mastering engineer a good master, or if you learn to master, something that you'll, again, thank yourself in for the future. And of course, we're only working on instrumentals today. We're not doing the vocal. The vocal day is tomorrow. We're going to do all vocals tomorrow. We're going to spend a ton of time tomorrow making sure you understand a little bit better about how to have a really expensive sounding vocal, what that looks like, what the top engineers are doing to get that really great sound. So don't miss that one. It's always a lot of fun. Let's switch gears to mixing.
Yay.
I want to ask the first question, which is, why do we control frequencies? What's the point of it? We just talked about that. It's all about balance. But we have this problem that is masking. Anyone know what masking is? I guess one's in chat if you don't know what masking is. Masking is another word for when elements in your mix, in your song, the tracks that you're using, share similar frequencies with each other in a way that causes buildups to happen, and the frequencies start to blend together in a way that starts to either cancel out certain things or build up or too much to where they're becoming muddy and incoherent. It often happens in the low end and the mid-range in particular. There's so many instruments that have mid-range information as part of their identity. And so you find a lot of times, and we saw this yesterday, when the vocal and the guitar and the synths were all in there, we started to see this rise on the Paz analyzer to where there was a buildup in that mid-range. Okay. So how do we deal with these masking issues? Okay. It really comes down to two parts. First off, you need to ask yourself this: decide which part of the element is most important. So you're looking, we're using a hypothetical here. We're pretending we have two synths and a guitar that are really competing for energy in the mid-range. The first thing you need to do is find out and ask yourself, which part of these elements is the most important? Where's the magic in each of these elements? And we keep that in mind. Let's pretend in this instance we find that the synth number one is doing a beautiful thing down in that 200 to 300 range. It's really giving the song some body. The guitar sits really nicely. There's some nice grit that exists right above there. The heart of that guitar is sitting in that 500 to 800 range. And that other synth is less about those low frequencies. In this case, hypothetically, it has this beautiful kind of saturation happening in that 800 to 2K range. We just notice that. Okay. So we take note. The other thing we need to think about though is how we use EQ to start carving out space, because we couldn't solve it with volume. You know, we turn these things up. We're trying to get clarity on these, but they're competing with each other. So we're going to have to use another tool, an EQ of some sort, to carve out space. Now, how do we do that? Well, what I found most often is that people aren't actually aggressive enough with the EQs they use, because what happens is they'll go and solo one of these. Okay, so they solo the guitar and they start making these EQ moves, and to them the guitar starts to sound like thin and bad, right? Sometimes when you do aggressive EQ, you're like, oh, it's lost all its character or something like that. But that's because you're looking at it too locally. In and of itself, it might sound bad if you're doing the right move to carve out the space that it needs. But we're not thinking about things locally. We're only concerned with how things work together. And so to understand what that means, we really need to understand a psychoacoustic effect that's happening here. When similar instruments play in a range together, the listener's ear fills in the gaps. You know how they always tell us in science that our ears and our eyes are like taking all this information in, they kind of make up information. Visually we do this too, but our ears definitely do this. It will fill in information. So if you were looking too locally at that guitar, you might not be brave enough to make the aggressive moves it would take to actually clean out the mud and make space for everything else. But when you think about it in a global context, you could make those moves. You listen to the synths and the guitar together, you're only comparing them relative to each other. And you make those moves, and what happens is if you were to solo it, it would sound bad, but when it's in context with everything else, it sounds just fine. All those frequencies are accounted for with something similar, and the ear just kind of fills in the gaps. That's what happens. What the listener hears is that original type of guitar, even though or somewhat similar to that. It might not be exactly the same, but it's going to be similar to what that initial guitar sounded like. It's a psychoacoustic effect that's happening. So all of this is to say, we need to decide which parts are most important, and we need to be aggressive enough with our EQing to carve out the space we actually need to tame those frequencies and lean into not a local mindset, but a global one, and understand what that means. We can get away with a lot more EQ if we do it that way. Jake's going to demonstrate that and show you in real time how you can cut out a lot more than you think you need to in some cases, and it still sounds just fine when it's in context with everything else. Does that make sense to everybody? Anything to add to that, Jake?
Nope.
Okay.
I have nothing to add to that. You've explained it very well.
Thoroughly, to some degree. So then we ask, why do we control dynamics? Okay. We need to understand if we're going to use these tools, the why behind it is actually the most important thing. And I think there's two main reasons why. There's maybe some other smaller reasons, but the two main reasons we control dynamics are, first, we control transient peaks. So we have these waveforms. We've seen waveforms, right? We sometimes see where a waveform will have a huge, tall transient that's really tall. It's very fast and tall. It's a big spike. Now, especially when I talk a little later about dynamics, that's the part of mastering that I'm going to talk about. You realize that that stuff is not very helpful when it comes to mastering. That stuff is in the way to using mastering tools correctly. A mastering engineer wants something that's pretty balanced already. And the reason they want that is because mastering compression should just be that final kind of glue that just subtly blends everything together, if anything at all. Like that's the best way to use mastering tools, to just give this beautiful polish to the track. If they're having to deal with all these crazy transients, then that makes it a lot harder. Suddenly we're having to do much more destructive things in the master, and that's not ideal. Also, there's often just energy to save. Okay, what we talk about a lot of time in our program is just how every song really has a finite amount of energy. And you've experienced this if you've ever tried to master anything, and you master it and you bring it up to even what the industry standard says you should have loudness be at. But when you compare it to other tracks, even though in terms of LUFS or RMS or whatever you're using, it's of a similar volume, it doesn't sound as loud. Okay. Uh, Energy saved is loudness later. So any energy you can save in the mix on any element to where you can tame some of those transients in a way that doesn't change the sound, but saves energy is is equal to what a mastering engineer can do with loudness later. Keep that in mind because Jake's going to demonstrate that today, what we mean. He'll probably use it on a kick or a snare or something like that, and he'll show you. He won't change the sound at all, but he'll save 3, 4, 5, 6 dB by using dynamics processing tools. And that's energy saved that can be used for loudness later. It will allow the mastering engineer to do a better job. The other reason we use dynamic control is for consistency. One of the things maybe we don't think about enough as mix engineers is the story we're trying to tell with the song. Every song has innate emotion, has a story that it's expressing both lyrically and through the music. And we have to consider the story that we're trying to tell the listener. And so much of that, definitely applies to frequencies too. For example, if there's mud, it's not translating some of the elements accurately. That's going to diminish the effect of the emotion and the story that you're trying to tell, but also with dynamics. Let me explain what I mean by this. Imagine a dance concert. You have a dance troupe or whatever they're called. You have a bunch of dancers, and then let's pretend in this hypothetical scenario you have like a lead dancer that's up front. You have background dancers that are kind of in the back. Um, when the lead comes in and the spotlight goes to the lead, where do we want the viewer of this concert to focus? It's a simple question. We want it to focus on the lead, right? That's the intention of that moment in the concert. But imagine a scenario where the spotlight comes down, the lead's doing their beautiful thing, but there's some background dancer back there that's just like freaking out, they're just kind of going crazy. They're kind of flailing. They keep dipping into the spotlight a little bit. What's happening? Instead of the audience being able to immerse themselves in the beautiful emotion portrayed by that dancer, they're distracted by a background dancer. And this is parallel to consistency in music. Our listeners are immersing themselves in the emotion of moments. Where do we want them to focus in the song? Oftentimes it's the vocal or maybe a solo that's happening or a counter thing that's happening in between a phrase. That's where we want the listener to focus. So this is where consistency comes in. If we have a great vocal that's sitting in there and the listener is immersing themselves in what's going on, the lyric and the melody and the intimacy of that vocal, but suddenly you have an element in the background of your song that just starts poking out too much or dying away in any way that distracts the ear to start to hear it, you've taken away from the story you're trying to tell you, and you've taken away from the emotion of it. Does that make sense? So
Makes
when
sense to me.
we're creating consistency in a track, we're telling a story. We need all of the background elements to be balanced in a way that's not distracting, for one. And it even applies to the lead. The same scenario, if the lead dancer trips and falls, suddenly we're taken out of the emotion of that moment as well. And so there's a consistency that needs to happen wherever we're pointing the listener's attention to as well. If the vocal, for example, uh, sometimes is too loud and suddenly there's a plosive and it pops out, or it ducks behind and suddenly is lost with behind some other elements in the mix, again, you've distracted the listener away from this consistency that's telling an emotional story in the mix. And that's the real why behind why we use these tools. We're saving energy and headroom, but we're also telling a story with consistency and focusing the listener's attention where we want them to go in every moment of the song. And if we're not thinking about that, we're not really focused on the emotional part of that mix enough, and we should be. And we should do that from the very beginning, no matter what level you find yourself at this time. Does that make sense, Jake? Anything you want to add to that?
Nope. Well said. Well put.
Last thing before we jump into the demo, spatial processing. Why is it so hard to get right? If you've done mixing for a while, you know that spatial processing, your reverbs and your delays can just be such a tricky thing to really land correctly. Well, there's a few reasons for this. I think the first reason typically happens, especially early on in your mixing career. There's something very powerful about reverbs and delays that have a tendency to smooth things out. And so early on, what we might do is use it to cover up problems. We're not solving problems first. We're not, using volume in a powerful way and then going in with a ton of intention and carving out frequencies and stuff. We just hear that stuff and we go, well, it doesn't sound good. Let me throw a reverb on it. And even if you just use a little bit, the accumulation of all those times you do that, suddenly you have this very muddy, washed out mix. Okay. And for a similar reason, we might use things too aggressively. Things just aren't sounding great yet. So I put more reverb on it because it will innately be smoother and more pleasant to the ear. But ultimately, it doesn't translate as well. It just muddies everything up and there's no translation or clarity happening. So that's a couple reasons. We also find that sometimes people use reverbs and delays in a way that's not consistent with the emotional scene. Again, we're telling a story. There is an innate emotion built into a song, depending on the movement and the character and the vibe that you have going on and the lyric and the melody and everything that's going on. There is an emotion, and reverbs carry a lot of emotion. It's probably one of the most emotional tools, along with saturation, I think. Those two, for me, paint with the most emotion of any tools we use in a mix. And, you know, you have to be aware and sometimes dial it in a little bit so that your reverb and your delay is consistent with kind of that emotion that's being expressed. They're not all the same, not all the spaces represent a similar thing to people. And so we need to really focus on that. That's like next level stuff. If we're trying to really paint beautifully with this, we're using it more subtly probably than you think. We're not covering up problems and we're getting tapped into the emotion that's being expressed. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the demonstration today. And then the last thing I'll mention on this is that oftentimes spatial processing is either too diverse or not diverse enough. What I mean by that is if you use one reverb, like on your whole mix, what's that going to sound like? It's really limited to just that one space. Now, there are applications for that. There's even live recordings where they just were like in a cave or they were in uh, a warehouse or something, and you get what you get. The room kind of decided the vibe that you're going for, but that's not most cases in modern production, mixing and mastering. That's not it. Most of the time, if you use just one reverb on anything, it's just going to kind of sound more live than you want it to. It's not going to be produced in a way that's consistent with a professional sound. Whereas if you use too many different reverbs and delays, sometimes what can happen is everything starts to feel disjointed from each other. There's this sweet spot that exists in the middle where you have just enough diversity that things are uh, have their own character and a little bit of separation from each other, but still feel glued together as a whole. That's kind of the goal. And so, what we're going to talk about today is a method to find that sweet spot between enough diversity of spatial processing, but not too much. And we have a method for that. It kind of reins you in to a good mindset and then lets you paint from there. We'll get into that more today in the demonstration. Jake, you ready?
Yeah, why not?
Should we do this thing?
I'm ready to go. You guys ready to go? Give me a 902,477 if you're ready to move forward. Woo! 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 Nice commas.
Ooh, going the extra mile.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll be right back. I'm going to grab a
If
Something
you
green.
could, before you go, if you could enable screen sharing for me.
You got it. Sorry about that.
All good.
Yep. You should be.
Pull up this session here. See what we got. Let me know. You guys see that? One's in chat. Sweet. Yesterday we did volume. Let's take a listen. Kind of refamiliarize ourselves with the track. And as we kind of go through here, we're going to be taking notes. Anything that I notice that might need fixing or could use enhancing or anything like that. Let's see. Audio check. Are you guys hearing that? One's in chat. If you're hearing it, okay, cool. Cool. Awesome song. Good job, Justin. I'm hearing a lot of stuff going on here. A lot of opportunity for enhancement. A lot of vocal things are kind of coming to mind, which I'm trying to like set aside, set in a little box for tomorrow, because we're gonna attack some of that stuff tomorrow. So these are the notes that I have. You know, I want those guitars, those lead guitars, to be a little bit more exciting, a little bit more high end, a little bit more energy on those. These pluck guitars need to widen up. The panning, that panning synth is kind of fighting the lead for attention in the verse. So we're going to take care of that. More energy and consistency to those guitar chops, that guitar chop solo. I think that can just have some more liveliness, some more energy. It's a little dull right now, so maybe that comes in the form of brightness, you know, paying more attention to higher frequencies. I don't know yet. The kick, I think, is a little bit behind everything else. I think it could probably just be a little bit punchier. There could be a little bit more impact there. And the alarm is alarming. You know, that ring, I think, is probably just a volume scooch down. Right. Those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on this. So what I'd like to do is just kind of go through this kind of one by one and tackle these things. Well, anything to add to that, Caleb, before we move in?
It's right to me.
Get started? Cool. All right. Diving in, guys. Here we go. More exciting lead guitars. Let's start there. I'm going to keep the vocals in for now. I'm going to group all these melody guitars together. Actually, let's see. Are they all always ever play at the same exact time? So that's cool. I'm going to group those together. And I'm just going to call it lead guitar. So they're all kind of going to a single bus. And then we'll process them.
Yeah, I do like this track.
Cool. So let's clean up a little bit of energy down here. We don't really need anything down there. Bass, kick, some other synths are kind of taking up this area. So lead guitar, don't really need it to focus down there. So I'm just going to pull it all out. And, you know, it's a very warm tone, which is awesome, right? But it might be too much, right? In context with the rest of the instrumentation, to my ear, it's doing exactly what Caleb was talking about earlier in the presentation, right? Which is creating just a little bit of a buildup, almost like a throatiness or a muddiness. So I'm wondering if it can get away with kind of just a very gentle kind of pulling that out. It's a subtle move, but I like it. We're going to stick with it. Okay. And then, and that's just the stock, stock EQ inside of the DAW. I'm not using anything fancy. If we were using wave stuff, which I think we can probably just use all wave stuff today.
Yep.
I'll just use the Renaissance EQ for that. Kind of roll some of this stuff off here. Do I always cut off lows like that? No, not always. Only on the...
There's almost no always is.
Yeah.
He's making a choice. He was explaining it's like there's information that's clashing down there. He's balancing it out.
This is exactly right. Dream says, interesting how I can hear more of the highs without actually touching the EQ with the highs. So this
Yeah.
is exactly what's happening. We're rebalancing the track by removing some of the lows, right? Or the mid range. We're actually drawing more attention to the highs. It's almost like tilting the frequencies from here to here. And your ear gets drawn a little bit more to the highs. It would be, I mean, effectively, it would be the same thing as doing something like this, where you're just like raising everything up over here. But instead of adding or boosting energy and then taking the gain down, we're just scooping it out.
And it's almost always better to do dips as opposed to big elevations like that. We're saving energy. And this goes back to that finite energy comment. I don't want to derail, but I was talking about how a lot of times the mastering engineer can only create loudness when there's balance. You know, if there were too much mids in there, look what it's doing to the highs, right? That loudness came through. It's more perceptive even when you carve some of that out. And even just a dip is actually having those high energy sound like it's actually being elevated. This is all about finite sonic energy and the kind of stuff you think about as a mastering engineer too.
And this is pretty subtle too. So if you guys are having trouble hearing any of this stuff, it comes with time and experience and focused training, right? And that's okay. It's totally okay. It's normal not to hear some of the subtleties here, especially if you're, at a certain place on the learning curve. Just keep running at this thing with us and you'll absorb it over time. Um, I need some more excitement from this thing. And when I say excitement, I'm really just kind of talking about like higher frequencies. Um, I'm gonna use this guy. I absolutely love this. And I actually might use the channel strip. This magma stuff that Waves just pushed out, I think recently, it was within the past few months. Um, this stuff is phenomenal. The magma series. Liquid hot magma. Yeah, exactly. So these are basically this is basically like a series of analog emulated circuitry, right? So tube channel strip here. Really cool stuff. I just love the way that the saturation sounds on this. So here we've got a drive, and then we've got an EQ, and then we've got a dynamics section here. I think we're gonna use all three of these things. And there's like a little screw here, just like in the hardware units where there are like screws and stuff like that to change circuitry parameters on on a smaller level, on a micro level. You can change the sensitivity of the drive here, make it less sensitive or more sensitive. And right now, the way that it's pushing, it's pretty subtle, right? Let's turn it off. There's a little bit of like signal level kind of like gain getting pushed too. So if we were to level match that, right about there. Okay. So now we're starting to hear, I don't know, there's life and excitement to it because we're adding harmonic content, right? And you really hear it when we start to drive the heck out of it, right? lot going on there. So maybe not that much, but let's listen to it in context. You guys hearing the difference there? Hearing how this thing is now starting to kind of push its way forward and step more into the spotlight and have a little bit more energy and a little bit more excitement around it. Do it one more time. First before. After. Right? Dull and now exciting. Hear the difference? Another kind of important point to take away here is the level matching. Did you guys notice that we did that? And even so, it's still probably just a little bit louder, so we're gonna bring it down a little bit. About there. So you can really kind of, you're getting an apples to apples comparison when you level match the plugins. When you turn it on and off, it's not the effect of louder is better, right? We're paying more attention to frequencies, we're paying more attention to the texture and the character that we're imparting on the sound, right? See what else we can do with this thing. I think we could probably use a little bit more high end. I'm not sure where this high shelf actually is on the frequency spectrum, but we're going to try to use it and see what happens. Right? Increasing the high end. Now it's starting to kind of like push forward a little bit more. Right? Now, between the guitar and the snare drum, the snare is no longer in front of the guitar. Now the snare and the guitar are kind of, sitting in a nice place together, with one another. Right? Before it was the snare out in front of that lead guitar. Now we're kind of a little bit more evenly matched, if not a little bit more in front of the snare. Now, let's do just a little bit of dynamic control. I'm not sure exactly the metering or anything like that. I'm just kind of going based on ear. And if I'm using my ear, that obviously is like too much to me. It's sounding like it's pretty crushed and squashed. We've got a whole different kind of, texture to the sound, right? It's choked, it's restricted. So I want to tame kind of like these louder notes that are poking out of the mix just a little bit so that this guitar kind of sits really, really nicely and firmly in the mix. It's not kind of poking out in some points and ducking back in the mix at other points. Level match it a little bit more. And let's just listen to this lead part.
Save it for another. Save it for another day, I said, but she don't listen. That's how
Let's level matching that a little bit more. So that sounds pretty good to me. I like it. Just gonna put a maybe just put a little bit of a roof over it. Just gonna limit. Oh, I thought these were linked.
save it for another day, I said. Save it for another. Save it for another.
Cool. So I just applied a limiter to the bus to control any of the dynamics, right? Anything that's poking out too much, I've pretty much brick walled limited it. And you can't even really tell a difference. It's really just kind of about dynamics management.
Are you saving any energy? Or
Uh,
your demo for that?
likely, let's see. So if you look at this meter, you'll see that we're peaking at about 11, minus 11.5 on the bus at the loudest peak. And then with the limiter, minus 14 in that same exact spot. So that's 3 decibels of headroom. That's not, not really all that audible.
Well, it's not audible at all. It sounds exactly the same, but you're saving the energy, which is what I was talking about earlier. So clippers and limiters in particular, and compressors to some degree, are good at saving that energy without changing the sound. Now that's energy that we can later use towards loudness. Remember, energy equals loudness later?
Or allocate towards other instruments that need it.
Right.
Like,
Or allocate it somewhere else. Right.
kicks, snares. Those are the things that need to be like transient heavy, at least for this genre and this song, right? Like very, very specifically the things that punch, right? Kicks, snares, percussive elements, not necessarily the lead guitar. However, you can talk to another engineer who will like the sound of the transients on that guitar, and that's okay too, right? Just know what your goals are and know how to use the tools to accomplish them. And I find it helpful to save that energy and just allocate it elsewhere. That's me. Let's add a little bit of space to these. I'm going to go through just kind of our method, our 3 buckets method for applying spatial processing to a mix. Again, no right or wrong or anything like that, but we found that this is kind of the sweet spot for, variety. Adding enough variety, but not too much variety across the mix in terms of spatial processing. So the way that we like to do this is in 3 buckets. Imagine that your whole mix can basically be broken down into 3 buckets. One would be instruments. The other would be drums and percussion. And the other would be vocals. Or you can think of it this way: drums and percussion, vocals, everything else. Another way to think of it. Split into 3 buckets. And each one of these categories of instruments gets their own wet effects. And when I say wet effects, I mean reverbs or delays, right? So for drums and percussion, we do a short reverb and a long reverb. For vocals, we set up a short reverb and a long reverb. And then for everything else, a short reverb and a long reverb. Now, you can add anything you want to these. If you want to add some delays to vocals, that's what I do. I have some aux tracks set up for delays as well. And these would all be separate aux tracks. So I'll show you what that looks like inside of the DAW. Right here. I've got all my aux tracks set up. I've got a drum short reverb, a long reverb, instrument short reverb, a long reverb, and a vocal short reverb, long reverb, a short delay, and a long delay. These are my buckets. My short reverb is usually somewhere between 500 milliseconds and a second. And the longer one will usually be kind of above 1 second. For instruments, I have a short one, 500 milliseconds. And these are just like reverbs and delays that I've arbitrarily just kind of like picked. And then over time, you kind of adjust them and you discover your own preferences for things. What works in your mix? What do you prefer? Right. The important thing is, if you're using this method, you're not sure where to start with spatial processing and you want to use this 3 buckets method, just pick something. Go based on a preset name.
You gotta start somewhere. You can always adjust it later. You just got to start.
Exactly. Now these are, these are Slate plugins that I have set up here. So we're using Wave stuff today. So I'm actually going to show you this process. I'm going to go ahead, since we're working on instruments right now and I want to add some wetness to this guitar. I'm actually going to start with my instrument long reverb. Let's see what Waves has. I like, let's see here. Arverb. Yeah. I like Arverb. And I'm just gonna basically use this as my main reverb for all of this stuff. I'm not gonna go down the rabbit hole there. We could explore a whole bunch of different ones, and that's the fun of it, right? But just for the sake of time and demonstration, I'm just gonna use this one.
So remind me in chat, if you were listening earlier, what are the 2 things we're thinking about right now? Yep. Okay. Diversity, the right amount of diversity, not too much, but enough. And then emotion, the emotion of the verb itself. Yeah, emotional scene. Good job. Just yeah, I meant just in terms of this reverb. That's what the bucket methods are doing. It's giving you a bit of diversity between the instruments and drums and vocals, and even within all of those, a short and a long, but it's not like 20 different reverbs we're using, right?
I'm just gonna randomly pick one. I want this bright hall. So we were talking about like life, life and energy and things like that to add to that guitar. So that might be a good place to start. Let's see. I'm gonna go to my lead guitar bus and I'm gonna send it to bus 23, which is the instrument long. I'm just gonna start blending that in and see how it sounds. Okay, let's see how it sounds in context.
Save it for another day.
That's pretty good.
Save it for
Nice. Happy with that. Oh, did my video just go out?
And not too heavy-handed, right? Just enough. And suddenly there's this sense of space. And do you hear the emotion of that space? Yes, Jeff, that's right.
Looks like my camera went out.
Seems like this has been happening a lot recently. Is your camera starting to kick the bucket? Rob, might be time for a new camera. You're muted, I think.
Did Jake's camera mess up?
Yeah, been dying a lot.
Hey. Okay. Rob, I think we've got some feedback coming from you. Better? Yep, better. Cool. All right. Let's dig back in here. What effects?
save it
Very subtle. I'm into it. I like it. Yeah, I'm not gonna overcomplicate that. I mean, I think it sounds great. I might just kind of EQ it a little bit. Wonder if we can do that inside the plugin itself. There's an EQ section inside of here. It looks like it's already rolling off kind of the high end. I'm going to use a separate EQ. Just to clean up kind of the lower mids. I'm just going to widen that up. So I'm kind of removing some of that mud to place the focus more on the upper frequency range of that reverb. Right? I think that'll help to make that guitar seem a little bit more lively. I'm also going to use a little bit of pre-delay on this reverb to separate the time that it takes the reverb to actually engage. So it's going to take this reverb, about 80 milliseconds to engage after it hears a signal. And what this does is it by separating the reverb effect from the dry signal, it actually gives the illusion that the dry signal is closer to us, right? Rather than no pre-delay means the reverb's going to activate right away and kind of make it feel a little bit more distant in the mix, right? So that's the reason I'm thinking, okay, let's use a little bit of pre-delay, create a gap between when the guitar plays and when the reverb actually activates. We can increase that. I actually like it way up there. Let's see what it sounds like in context.
Save it for save it. Save it.
I actually might experiment here with a little something else, and then we'll take a quick break. I'm going to call this instrument delay. I'm setting up another aux track for my instruments. I'm going to use a delay. And just layer a little bit of delay effect. Use H delay.
Old H delay.
Yep.
I think it might have been the first plugin I ever used on anything ever.
It was definitely one of the firsts for me.
That's not true because I don't even know if Waves existed when I first started, but it's like the first Waves one at least.
It was one of the first for me when I sorry Waves, but when I pirated it as a kid. You know, I was like 16 or 17. And like that was when like you know, LimeWire and like BearShare and stuff like that was all like hitting hard. So and I had no idea what I was doing. I had no clue what I was doing. I pulled up this H delay. I'm like, what the heck is this? You know, and then just like added it to everything, and all my mixes just completely sucked.
Yeah, I didn't have money to buy anything when I was 16 and I started producing. Everything was LimeWire.
Yeah, yeah, I know, dude. And then you get serious about it, and it's like, oh, okay, I should probably grab these things. You know,
BearShare.
and it comes with so much headache too. You know, when you have to upgrade things, it's just like
broken.
it's just like, dude,
It barely works.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not worth it. And these guys are putting out some like sick stuff. You know, companies are putting out some sick stuff. Just pay for them. Anyway, we don't have to get into that. We don't have to get into that.
One's in chat if you remember Hotline or Hotwire. That was like
LimeWire.
No, there was a hot one though. It was hot. Anyway, we've gone off the path.
Hot wire.
Hot wire, right? Yeah.
Frost wire.
There was frost wire as well. Now we're way down a rabbit hole.
Oh yeah. For me, it was Napster, LimeWire, BearShare, and there was like one more I can't remember.
All the Gen Z folks here are just like, what are you talking about?
On the note, I guess on a related note, I'm trying to sort a free Waves plugin for everyone.
Oh,
And I'm going to paste a document here. Let me know what your vote is. There's a list of plugins. And I kind of have my favorites, but they said we can pick one for you guys.
Huzzah. That was the
I
other
thought-
one. That was the other one. Huzzah. Sorry, Rob. Go ahead.
Sorry. I thought maybe you guys could just have a look and let me know what your favorites are.
Yeah, check that document out. Honestly, I don't even feel bad about pirating stuff back in the day because the tens of thousands of dollars of stuff I've purchased since then because I got hooked in production, I think certainly paid off for these companies.
I think for some companies, that is actually a core part of their strategy. If you look at like FL Studio, they're huge now because they built this massive user base of kind of like pirated copies, and then they're all now repeat buyers. Like it's actually like a bit of a strategy, I think, secretly. Try before you buy, exactly.
Oh man, they got some cool stuff they're offering here.
Yeah, I was thinking Max Volume because Max Volume's got the really cool lower level stuff like MV2, where you can do kind of upward compression.
Yeah.
And it's different to like parallel compression. And they're like the two tools that do it really well. It's kind of niche, I guess. But okay, everyone's saying Max Volume. Cool.
Cool. Let's see if we can get that free plugin.
Sick. Thanks, Rob.
No worries.
Well done. Get back into some delay here. I'm going to set this up so that we're at, I don't know, starting at about a quarter. Quarter note. Let's do a ping pong. Yep, we'll tie it to the host BPM. Great. That means it's just going to follow, whatever we have set for the tempo on the session. And then we'll start to bring that in, see what it sounds like.
Save it for another.
You guys hear it? I'm just going to turn down the feedback, which is the number of repeats. Somebody asked why not delay before. It's not like a before and after thing. We're using sends and auxes, right? So we're actually blending everything simultaneously. It's not like first in the chain or second in the chain. It's like, hey, signal comes down here, boop, let's make a copy of it, send it over here, and then blend the copy. And let's make a copy of this, send it over here, then blend the copy, right? So it's not like sequential or anything like that. It's just like 3 simultaneous tracks all being played at the same time with different levels blending.
So you can do that. It's just a different sound.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, Production 101 covers what buses do and all this stuff. Sends and auxes, what is the difference? These are things that you're going to have to take notes on. Guys, we're not going to go deep into that kind of stuff. But take a note there. That's YouTubeable, Googleable. And I'm actually going to use the filter inside of this plugin to filter out like the extreme highs here. So they're just kind of getting a little bit too in the way. If I were to filter this all the way down. You know, we've got a duller delay happening, and then if I keep it open, it's a brighter delay happening. So let's just kind of bring it down a little bit. You know, and maybe we play with this other stuff like the lo-fi mode. Fine. Let's play with some of these analog modes.
Oh, Jake.
Yes.
No, you're screen sharing. I can see it. Yeah, screen sharing's there. If you're not seeing it, just log out and back in, maybe. Sorry, Jake.
All good. Two is fine. I like it. I'm not hearing like too big of a difference between these, at least not to the point where it's going to be really, really obvious and kind of like poke through the mix or anything. Yeah, kind of like this modulation, kind of like this wavery kind of thing going on. Probably not meaning to go that extreme with it. I think maybe just like a little bit. I don't know, just to give it a little something. Just playing with it. You know, could get away with not using it or anything like that. You know, nobody's gonna know except for me and you.
Save it for another.
Cool. And I'm gonna drive this a little bit more. Maybe add a little bit more high end. Let's see. That delay is hitting in just the wrong spot with the modulation, so I'm going to turn that off. That sounds pretty good to me. Let's roll into it. First, we're going to roll into it without the processing, and then we'll listen to it with. You guys feel that? I'm asking if you feel it. I mean, because it's really kind of more of a feel thing. You should be able to hear it a little bit too, right? You're obviously, because we're audio engineers and that's what we're talking about, but there's something about the feeling of the track that we've influenced, right? We've influenced the feeling of the track by doing this kind of processing to that lead element, creating more excitement, more energy, and almost more focus to it. You know, I'm focusing right on that guitar. Whereas before the processing, it's dull. It's kind of like a piece, you know, a piece of the mix that doesn't really have a spotlight shown on it, right? Again, just going to start without the processing. And we'll do one more A-B. without, no with.
Save it for another.
Yeah, I think you used a good word earlier when you wrote it out. You're saying more excitement, more exciting lead guitars. Mission accomplished. I think that's exactly what you did there.
Cool.
More
Makes
exciting.
sense. Makes sense, everybody? Following? And for those of you who aren't following, replays, make sure you're writing down your deep questions. And depending on where you are on the learning curve, it's totally normal. If you're feeling overwhelmed by this stuff or you're feeling like you're not following, be a fly on the wall. Just sit and absorb some of this stuff, because the more that you do that, the more it's going to click for you.
I personally liked it because that whole guitar demonstration basically hit on each of the points that I made earlier, one by one.
Exactly.
Awesome job.
Exactly all the points. We talked about, just to recap quickly, we talked about frequency masking. We talked about overlap. We talked about dynamics. Talked about controlling dynamics when we used a little bit of the compression inside of the channel strip. And we managed those even further by using a limiter. And we saved that energy that Caleb was talking about, right? We saved about 3 decibels of headroom there just on that lead guitar bus, right? We saved that energy. And we also talked about spatial processing. We walked you through that whole kind of concept, this 3 buckets method that you can use as a template for your own productions if you want to start to kind of explore that kind of stuff. By all means, those are the 3 main points. The rest of this session is icing on the cake, guys. We're gonna have fun with it.
Yep.
So we'll take a quick break, quick fiver.
Yep. See y'all in 5.
I'm gonna go ahead and put up a timer. Not just any timer, but my favorite timer. The Goog. There it is. There she blows. Favorite timer, least favorite alarm. So we're gonna shut that off because it's super annoying. Ugh. We'll get that on full screen. We'll get that started up. Guys, take a bio break, empty yourself or refill, and see you in 5. Hi. Everybody take a power nap? I did. I don't sleep. I just take 5-minute power naps. I can raise and lower my key at will. All right, guys. Any questions before we thank you, Justin. Tell your dog I said hi. Any questions before we move on to the next thing? Any quick ones? Any quick ones? What about the short verb? I didn't add anything to the short verb auxiliary track because I'm not using it yet. I'm not going to spend the time setting it up if I'm not going to use it. Who knows? We might find a point in time where we use it. But for now, just gonna, for sake of demonstration, we'll just keep going. This session was well prepared, but let's say if the dynamic range was very big, do we have to fix it while fixing the volumes and gain staging, or we keep it to the real mixing part? Yeah, so typically, typically for like dynamic range and things like that, when we think of something having a wide dynamic range, the first thing that I think about is a vocal, right? A vocal that maybe wasn't recorded through outboard gear, like wasn't recorded through compressors and other units where the saturation would kind of like control it. In this case, it looks like these were pretty well, yeah, these are like obviously like these vocals were compressed, at least either they were sung through hardware units and compressed on the way in, or they were processed after the fact and that was all just printed into the tracks. But typically, if you got somebody just kind of recording directly into the audio interface, you're going to see kind of like big spikes and dips, spike, dip, spike, dip, spike, dip, that are really kind of more like, if we were to zoom into this, like kind of more like this, but on a wider level. And we're going to show you exactly how to kind of manage that in day 3 on a vocal. But the short answer is volume automation. You do volume automation on that kind of stuff during your volume only mix. That's what I like to do. Anywho. So we've got some, spikes here, boop, 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 this kind of stuff. But this is all like well processed. I mean, I can tell that this has got some processing on it. Anyway. Do you also pan the reverbs? Nope, these are just stereo. These are just stereo reverbs. I prefer to use stereo reverbs. Maybe once in a great while for like an experimental purpose, I'll use like a mono reverb and then pan it somewhere. But it's, for me, I don't really use that technique, but other engineers will, and depending what kind of picture you want to paint. RMS compression, what's that? I guess I don't know what RMS compression is. Is it good to use reverb on top of a delay? It's not really about good or bad. It's about what effect you want to get. Does Vocal Writer work kind of like a transparent limiter? No, limiters have like a different algorithm. A vocal writer is like legit just writing in volume automation. How much energy did we save on that last tweak? I don't know. Or I mean, in terms of like signal level, we saved like 4 decibels of headroom, but we're also adding a few effects, a few very subtle effects like reverbs and delays. That's actually adding energy. If you think about it, it's adding something to the mix where there wasn't something before, right? I can't show you differences between short reverb and long reverb because I don't have a short reverb set up right now. I'll set those up tomorrow for the vocal session. Or, as we kind of continue through this session, I might set a short reverb up. But the big difference is, I think the main thing to take away there between short, what I consider a short reverb and a long reverb are decay times. So like if you want some kind of guide or starting point, this is not Bible or anything like that, but what I would consider a short reverb is like less than a second or like a second or less. And then a long be like 2 seconds or more, equal to or greater than. A short equal to or less than, if you want some kind of starting point for short reverbs and long reverbs. Just kind of decay times, right? What about RMS compression for that? RComp first, then RVox. Get the track stats for peak, min, and max, and the RMS average. No, I don't do any of that stuff. I go based on ear. I don't use like math or anything like that most of the time. There's a little bit of math involved here and there, but I just kind of go by ear. Yeah, subconscious mental math, basically. Yeah. How do you detect phasing when doing this? Other than your ear? If I can't hear it, then it's not a problem. That's kind of my 2 cents, right? There's always going to be phasing in a mix. It's just phasing happens. Anytime you use an EQ, like there are curves, those curves cause phasing just by nature of, what you're doing by manipulating the sound. It's always going to exist. You spend your time chasing phasing, you'll never finish a mix, So what I listen for is like this kind of like smearing sound that goes across the speakers from left to right. It's kind of like this displacement. It's almost like if you were to take the frequency spectrum of a sound and clap it between your hands and then go like this and smear it across the left and the right. That's what phasing sounds like to me. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody but me, but it also makes it also makes certain instruments like tilt, right? So for example, if you've ever put like maybe an ozone imager or some kind of spreader or stereo imager on your whole mix, like on a mix bus, you'll notice that like a vocal might tilt a little bit to the left or the right, or a snare drum might tilt a little bit to the left or the right because you're smearing the transients, you're smearing all those frequencies across the spectrum like that.
There also might be a thinness that could be a problem. If there's a phase cancellation happening, then all of a sudden you maybe lose some information there. It's getting canceled out. So there's like a thinness you can't explain or fix. Could be phasing.
Yeah, I guess that's like the layman's kind of explanation of what phasing is. You know, with the, again, I'm not a math guy, so I just kind of try to describe how it sounds to me. And it's not, again, it's not like necessarily good or bad, right? Especially if you're using it for a very specific purpose or like a particular use case. It's bad if it doesn't meet your goal, right? It's bad if it doesn't meet the target for you or the client, you know. That's when it's bad. Phasing, somebody says phasing sounds corny. There is a bit of a corniness quality to it. If yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. Good adjective to use. Anyway,
A few people dropping links to like the reverb course and stuff. If you want, you can go on our website and literally just mastering.com and then click free courses, and then you can watch them all without ads, and they're actually like broken up. So we've got the
oh
full
yeah,
courses on YouTube, and they're like 10-hour videos. But if you go on our website, they're broken up into modules without ads. It's just a bit more user friendly. If anyone wants to check those out for going deeper into any of this, like even the comments on like RMS compression stuff. If you go through the compression course, that's not a very common form of compression. But go through the compression course, that will give you just a ton of clarity on how to kind of approach compression. For example, if you want something that, obviously this is all about live, fly on the wall kind of style. If you want something that's like more structured, you can also check out our free courses on the website as well.
We should probably take those down, Rob.
yeah. I was thinking the same thing.
Too much free
Too much, too much value. Too much value here.
Should probably take those
Getting
down.
out of hand.
Get rid of those. It's too much.
I've been hearing a lot of people say how much they hate them. Anyway,
Actually crazy how much good information's there. So yeah, definitely check it out.
anyway, let's get back into it. Let's get back into the mix, guys. Next, pluck the guitar. Are you guys ready? First and foremost, are you ready to continue? One's in chat. One's in chat. Looks like all y'all are ready. Cool. A little bit more guitar work here. You know, we've got this kind of plucky guitar.
Save it for another day, I said, but she don't listen. That's how I like it. Habits that I need to kick. Sorry, couldn't give you the world just yet. Solid stuff.
Okay, so we've got this guitar. You know, there's a lot of kind of like, this is one of those things that has a lot of kind of dynamic range to it, right? So I want a little bit more consistency with that, with those plucks, so they're not like bop, 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 like seemingly kind of like randomly kind of poking out. So that's my first order of business here. Does Waves have a clipper?
I don't think so. You might have to cheat.
You know, I really like the magma stuff. Saturation will clip if you push it hard enough, but it also imparts a very particular tone.
They
Do you
don't
know?
have it. If they don't have it, I'm fine if you just use a free plugin or something else.
Have like a standalone clipper, right?
No, they don't. I'm pretty sure they don't.
Yeah. Well, then I'm going to use this one from VClip, or from Ven Audio. It's called VClip. what we're doing here is instead of limiting the peaks and just turning them down, like brick walling them, we're going to just chop off the waveforms, like basically square off the waveforms. And what this can do is control the dynamics without sacrificing punch. So here we can see in the visualizer of the plugin that there's some peaks happening here, right? I'm going to bring the ceiling of the clipper down on top of those peaks.
Love the
Just pop-
visualization of this plugin. It's so useful.
Yeah. And when we push it this much, you can actually hear that there's a little bit of distortion happening here. It's really noticeable right in this spot where we have these kind of peaks happening, right? Hear how they pop right out of the mix? And now, once we have clipping on there, they're still popping a little bit. They got some punch, but they're being controlled. If you take a look at this meter right here, see how much that jumps up without the clipper? We got peaking at -16, and then we clip it. Peaking at -22. That's 6 decibels of headroom right there. And we're maintaining the punch. Right? Let's listen to it with a limiter. Why wouldn't we use a limiter for this? This is a little bit more audible. I'm going to put the auto release on that. And then the clipper. You don't lose the punch, right? You maintain the punch. The limiter, yes, somebody says feels softer on the limiter, right? It's all about the transients. What is it doing to the transients?
You know, Jake, I didn't teach about the difference in my presentation. Maybe worth just pulling up a little slide and showing them real quick for those. I think it's worthy visualization to do really quick.
Yeah. So here's a little kind of like just a visual way that I like to think about dynamics processing. Right? So first, we've kind of got this original signal, right? And then we've got limiting. And then we've got clipping. And then we've got compression, right? So imagine these are peaks. All right.
See you, Rob.
Later, Rob. Say hi to Devon for us. So limiting, what does limiting do? Here's the ceiling, right? Or the threshold. We'll do like little boops there.
What are they now?
Boops. And then limiting, we'll turn down the signal as soon as it hits the threshold, right? Boom. Clipping will, let's get the border off of there. Actually clip the peak when it hits the threshold. And compression is a little bit more subtle depending on the ratio, which means the signal is still going to be turned down, but it's going to be allowed to pass the threshold a little bit. Right? It's not brick walled like limiting, you know, it's not brick walled like clipping. It doesn't chop off the waveform. Right? So is this kind of making sense, guys?
So which one's gonna change the sound the most?
That's kind of a kind of a strange question, right?
Yep.
It's kind of a trick question.
Well, I guess I should clarify. I guess which one's going to impart the most distortion?
Yeah, that's going to be clipping. Totally.
Right. And that's one
Yeah.
of the main differences when you're using limiting and clipping. I mean, it's doing a different thing. Now, distortion isn't always a bad thing. I was explaining this in chat earlier. It's like you use clipping maybe on percussion and drums a lot, because sometimes that high-end distortion actually is nice, like on a top of a snare or something. Can add a little bit of crunch. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Just different tools for different moments. And if you don't clip very hard, you're not even probably going to hear the distortion. It's just it's more aggressive. Oh yeah. Jake knows his way around a keynote.
Darn Skippy.
And used differently too. You can like enhance with a compressor. Like limiting and clipping is mostly just for taming transients. Yeah, utility based. A compressor, you can do a ton with the character of things, and you can really enhance certain parts of the sound and the transient. You can make the attack come through more, or the body come through more. It's almost an EQ in a way. You can, you know, there's high-end innate in a lot of transients on drums, for example. You can enhance that coming forward, or the body, which is more warmth, depending on how you set the attack and release. So it's a more complex tool, which isn't a good thing necessarily too. I mean, if you just want to tame transients, a limiter or clipper is much easier to do that. It's one knob, you know, it's much quicker to dial in the settings to do it.
Make sense? You with us? Following? Cool.
Thanks, Jake. That's a great explanation. I think people really appreciated that.
Yeah, sweet. No, and again, you know, this is just explanation of the tools. No rights or wrongs here or anything, guys. Just depends on what you want to do to the sound. You know. The clipper's got a little bit of an edge to it, right? That's what I'm noticing here. And to be honest, I like the limiter more in this scenario. I'm even going to use the clipper. I don't want to draw too much attention to those. You know, it's a background element. It's not the lead. It's not the start of the show.
Save it for another day, but she don't listen. That's how I like it. Habits that I need to kick.
It's in the center of the mix, right? It's congesting the mix. And I had like this. No, it wasn't this one. It was this this pluck guitar. I had to make it wider, so I'm actually going to go ahead and do that. So instead of it being mono, just straight up the center of the mix, I'm going to spread this out to the sides. I'm just going to use a mono to stereo H delay. Do I have control over the left and the rights? On this? Can I get into stereo mode? I don't think so on the H delay. Need a different delay to create. Anybody have a suggestion on a delay for creating a Haas effect for waves?
Do they have a sample delay? If not, you can use the sample delay.
Super tap, someone said? Let's try it. Let's try super tap. Oh, this looks old.
I think that'll do it though. It's controlling left and right delay, I think, right there.
Nope.
Abort.
What else, guys? What else for delays?
Doubler. Might work.
Oh yeah, doubler would work. Where's our doubler? Doubler. My old eyes. My old eyes can't see that. So I'm going to turn off the direct signal. And I'm just going to use the doubler. I'm going to pan this. Yep. I guess 45 is as far as it goes. Yep. Cool. Detune one side, 6. The other side, -6. Sense. Is there sense? Delay. I'm actually going to... Is that 7.3? Is that the lowest it goes?
Probably work.
I'm not doing that. I'll take the direct signal. And I'll use the direct signal and pan that all the way to the left. And then I'll take the doubled signal, pan it all the way to the right. And I'll delay the double about 20 milliseconds. 0 feedback, so it's just a single delay. What is this? I don't know what that is. It's a filter.
Oh, yeah. High pass.
I guess it's 16 hertz. Fine. No skin off my back.
Range all the way up.
Okay, so this is the slope. This is the 16 octave decibel per octave, right? And then this is the...
Got it.
Gotcha. That's the point. And I'm going to turn off any kind of EQ or anything like that.
Learning in real time.
Hear the difference? Here's without. Right up the center. And then with. So we've effectively, basically, we've just taken a mono track and made it, you know, widened it up and turned it into a stereo track, right? So now, well, the reason why we did this was to declutter the center of the mix and provide room for the vocal. And this is also going to give us a little bit of width, right? Let's listen in context.
Day I said, but she don't listen. That's how I like it. Habits that I need to kick, like feeling sorry, couldn't give you the
Now in the center without it.
save it for another day. I said, but she don't listen. That's how I like that I need to kick, like feeling sorry, couldn't give you the world just yet. Save it for.
And now with.
Save it for another day, I said, but she don't listen. That's how I like it. Habits that I need to kick, like feeling sorry, couldn't give you the world just yet.
Right? So just decluttering the mix, decluttering the center of the mix, you know, widening it up, making sure that it's not fighting with the lead vocal. That's the thought process. Anyway. Are there other things that we can do to like make this declutter the center of this? Absolutely. You know, you can use some modulation effects. You can use something like a chorus to kind of like let it swim back and forth. You could do, I don't know, some kind of like mono like panning effect, so it's swirling around. It's totally up to you.
This is the cleanest probably way to do it.
Yeah, cleanest, totally. I would say.
Save it for another day, I said, but she don't listen. That's how I like it. Habits that I need to kick, like feeling sorry, couldn't give you the world just yet. Save it for another day.
I'm okay with that. Put that to bed. With me on that, guys? Any questions? Yeah, conflict with the keys that are going left or right. I don't know. It's to me, it's not like it's not conflicting with any of the focal point elements. That's what I'm concerned with. I don't care if it plays a little bit and fights a little bit with some other things. I'm not really going to pay too much attention to that. However, it's funny that you mentioned that like panning synth, because that's the very next thing on my list, right? Is the panning synth is just fighting for attention just in general. So let's take a look at that. Let's see what's going on. This one. That one. I think, you know, we might just be able to like turn it down.
Save it for another day, I said, but she don't listen. That's how I like it. Habits that I need to kick, like.
And let's turn it down a little bit more, just in the verses. When the vocals come in, you know, it just doesn't need to be that loud.
Save it for another day, I said, but she don't listen. That's how I like it. Habits that I need to kick, like feeling sorry, couldn't give you the world just yet. Solid stone, countertops approve.
now we've got less of that kind of competing happening and pulling the attention away from the vocal. We've got to sit down back in the mix a little bit more. And we've kind of paved the way for this pluck guitar to kind of come through. You know, it's a little bit of a textural change, and there's contrast between sections now.
Save it for another day, I said, but she don't listen. That's how I like it. Habits that I need to kick, like feeling sorry. Couldn't give you the world just yet. Solid stone, countertops to prove are sturdy enough, and so I'll stay here for a spell while the clock is winding down on us. Pause all the chores and let me take you into my arms to feel the very reason I exist, the very reason I exist. Kitchen lights are a mood tonight. Proving you're something I can't resist. Proving you're something I can't. You just like it anyway, she laughed. My thoughts are racing, dancing all around my head. Intense when I walk in.
Same thing here, just going to pull that down for the verse. A lot going on there. I've already heard that sound, so we can kind of like push it back in the sound stage.
You just like it anyway, she laughed. My thoughts are racing, dancing all. What'll happen next? Solid tones, golden tinted bulbs will remember when we are old. I see her in my shirt, one you stole. When will I ever put on the charm and let me take you into my arms? The bottles, but
Nice.
It's
Love
really
it.
starting to
Little
sound
bit-
really good. I'm pretty excited for the vocal day tomorrow. It's gonna be sick.
It's gonna, I mean, that's gonna just elevate this thing whole next level. Move on.
Sam, yeah, sometimes widening verb in a chorus is really nice. Um, a less destructive way of doing that might be verbing out a delay, a ping-ponging delay that's going side to side, as opposed to just slapping a widener on your reverb. As you can tell, I'm not a huge fan of wideners and imagers 90% of the time. I think they should be used really subtly. I think people use them too much, and it causes phasing and frequency loss and weird modulations. and
Transients.
stuff. Yeah, transient.
Transients.
And I was saying that earlier. I was saying it's almost like reverb in a way in which everything just starts to muddy to the point that you lose like the sonic impact of the song by using that stuff too much.
Yeah, for me, it's like imagers, stereo spreaders, stuff like that. They're very, very, very niche and specific kind of uses. Is there something, is there something in stereo that's already in stereo that I want to just slightly push outside the speakers a little bit? Just slightly. Then that's what I'll use an imager for. Like on one very specific instrument. Across the whole mix, you start to run into those things that Caleb was talking about. That smearing, transient smearing. Everybody wants a punchy mix. Well, if you're putting an ozone imager on across your entire mix, you're ruining the punch because you're smearing the transients. The things that need to be in the center of the mix, full frequency, kicks and snares and stuff like that. Now you're spreading them across like that, and it results in a little bit less impact, right? If you're just like slamming it with stereo imaging, right? Something to think about. Something to think about. Anyway, Let's talk about those guitar chops.
You just like
So check this out. Peep this. First of all, let's just do like a little bit of volume automation here on these lead guitars. Because right now, what I'm hearing is lead guitar fighting with this chopped guitar. Right? Got some fighting going on. I think we can make it a little bit clearer and a little bit more focused, you know, by taking this chopped guitar, stepping it into the spotlight instead of boosting it a ton and boosting a bunch of high frequencies and slamming it with some saturation. Let's start by saving energy. Let's start by taking something away, right? That background dancer that is flailing around and trying to step into the spotlight, or the cowbell player who's stepping in front of the lead singer, right? Let's just take them back. What we're going to do here is use some volume automation to do that. I'm going to take that lead guitar and I'm just going to turn it down a little bit. See what that does. And we're going to group this guitar chops. Okay, I'm going to do something a little bit more creative here. I'm going to take this portion, just this portion of that centered melody guitar, because it's still fighting with the guitar chops. And I'm going to apply that same technique that we applied to turn this into a stereo track. To spread it out to the sides, declutter the center. Just going to use a doubler on that. And instead of doing that whole rigmarole with the settings, I'm just going to grab this doubler from over here, drag it over here. And maybe for a little bit of variety, I'll just change the panning scheme. We'll have the original going to the right side, and then the double going to the left side. And that's just for this segment of that lead melody guitar that is conflicting with the chopped guitar.
Yeah, and the amount of milliseconds you add to the delay kind of pushes it out wider too. So if a very small, it's only going to go like this, a little bit more, and then all the way if you use more delay. And then it starts to separate.
Let's listen. Then it jumps back to this one here as soon as that chopped guitar exits the arrangement. And then we pull the focus back to that hook.
This is a good moment. This is a good moment to mention like the storytelling thing I was talking about earlier, right? Where do we want the listeners' ears to go in these moments, right? At first you want it to be that cool guitar solo, and then as that fades out, it's like hit them again with the hook. And that's the hook of the guitar, which is important. So you're highlighting the point that you want them to really focus on as a listener, right?
Exactly. leading, guiding. And this is all really dictated by the arrangement. You know, I'm not like coming up with this stuff. It's in the production already.
Yep.
You know, it's your job. You're the spotlight guy. You're the guy running spotlight or gal, I should say. Right? What are you going to shine that spotlight on? Right? So stereo. And then when the hook comes back in, right? Comes right back into center focus. In context, just kind of lead guitar and guitar chops. Now without that doubler, can you hear the scrambled eggs going on there? Like there's just less focus. It's just those two lead parts are just like stepping all over each other. And now we clear out the space with the doubler. That chopped guitar comes right forward, right? Without even doing anything to it. We're just moving stuff out of the way. Sick. So it's already clearer. We're already getting some more kind of like consistency out of those guitar chops. What I'd like to do is something similar to what we did with the lead guitar, which is make it a little bit more lively, a little bit more exciting, right? We're going to do that with some saturation. I'm not going to use the same exact thing. I want there to be some variety there, right? So I'm not going to use the Magma channel strip, but because I like the Magma series of saturation so much, I might just use a different one, like the Lil Tube or the BB Tubes. Unless you guys have a suggestion, I'm happy to go with something else too. You know, I really like the BB Tube. I think it's one of my favorites. This is one of my favorite plugins, by the way. I don't know if I said that
Is that one of your
or
three?
not, but I grouped Magma into like one of my 3 favorite plugins. Yeah.
Is Paz one of them, the other ones?
Paz is one of the other ones.
And is the other one Vocal Writer?
Nope.
Ah,
No.
all right. I guess we'll get to it. Keeping me on the edge of my seat. You know how to just
Oh,
tease
yeah.
me, right, Jake?
Mm-hmm. All right. We're doing this. BB Tubes. This thing is sick. It is one of the most gorgeous saturation units I've ever heard. It's really great. You've got a beauty mode and a beast mode here. This is like such a pump up for this plugin. This is like an ad for this plugin. I absolutely love it. It's so smooth and beautiful.
By the way,
What's that?
By the way, people should know in full transparency, we don't get paid by Waves or anything like that. They're sponsoring to make this event free, but we don't get paid for them. Paid by them directly.
No.
But
No, I don't get kickbacks for every Magma BB Tubes you buy.
no, we
You
don't
know?
even we don't even take that as a company. In fact, anytime a company offers like an affiliate type thing, we don't take those. In fact, we only ask that they give like discounts to our students instead of affiliate stuff. So
It's all for you guys. Anyway, All that being said, check out this cool plugin.
Sorry.
Okay, awesome. There's a beauty mode, there's a beast mode. You know, a little bit more squared off. Kind of more upper mid-rangey, sounds like. On the Type B. Oh, actually, no, more subdued. Yeah, actually a little bit more subdued there, just a little bit duller. I want to go with the Type A. And you can blend these, you know, these two sides, which is sweet. Another thing I thought was really cool about this is that you have like a high shelf, and you can shelf the signal before it hits the saturation modules, and you can also shelf it after it hits the saturation modules. Right, so you have EQ control prior to saturation in the signal chain, and then post. Right,
That's cool. I don't think I've ever used it. It seems awesome.
it's baller. First thing I'm going to do here is just kind of like clean it up though. Oh, forgot. Not using that. Using my Renaissance EQ. Okay, I'm digging out some of that lower mid-range stuff. And I'm actually going to add a little bit of top end before we hit the saturation. All right, stand by. Stand back, everyone. take this section right here. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Now it's got more high end. Just these notes right here. I don't know if I'm going to EQ them differently or I'm just going to bring them down. Let's see. I think that's okay. I've just brought these down a decibel and a half so that they don't stick out as much in the mix. It's a little bit smoother to listen to.
You just like it anyway, she laughed. My thoughts.
Cool part. You know what? I'm going to try something wackadoo.
Ooh,
A little bit wackadoo. I'm going to take that chopped guitar solo. Just this one. And I'm going to send it to a parallel compressed track.
whack a what? That's right. iPhone. Nailed it.
Call it parallel chops. And I'm going to compress the crap out of it. What do I want to use? Oh boy. I don't think I'm going to use any of this stuff. Any suggestions for some extreme, like tasty kind of compression?
You could use what's that tape? Kramer tape, all the way saturated.
Oh, wait. Can you do all buttons in on their 1176?
Don't remember.
I don't know if you can on the Waves one, can you? Yes, the black one, Blackie. Yeah, I think I want to do that. If you can do all buttons in, then yes. I say. They call it, I think they gave it to CLA, didn't they?
Yeah.
There it is.
All buttons and all button.
Oh, sick. Look at that. That's sweet.
Hard to push all four of them in. We need a button for it.
Yeah. Gee whiz. I'm just going to go fastest attack, fastest release. Cool. And
Let's compare that with the Kramer tape, knobs turned all the way,
yeah,
just for fun.
yeah, why not?
Sounds, but you know, people were talking about Kramer tape when I mentioned it. So the record level and the playback level just turned all the way. Yup.
Oh, I like that way better. It's just vibier, like super.
The Kramer you like better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I mean, it's given. I did dig out the mid range, and this will be adding to it. Let's just see how it suits it in context. If we just blend in a little bit, it might not give us any kind of issues here. Let's see. Let's see. I don't know. Let's try. There's only one way to find out.
You can always EQ
No.
it too.
Yeah. This is exactly the kind of effect that I was going for. Just boom, just pushed right up front, right in your face, right? Just kind of like consistently just there. Sitting very, very firmly up front in the mix. I think this does a great job just kind of parallel blending this in to the track, right? We're going to do a before and after. First before. Here we go. Right? Kind of relaxed, a little bit subdued. And now with the parallel. Just sitting boop right in front. You know, impossible.
That's what we call tasty. That's tasty.
Toasty. It's toasty. That is exactly what we call tasty. And then I'm going to take this lead guitar part and bring it back up for this hook. Hello. Interesting. Interesting. Just this little sliver right here. There. Let's see how this plays out. And I'm going to bring this up a little bit more. Right? So there's a nice handoff between the guitar chops, and then when that hook comes back in, that's all it is. It's handing off the attention, handing off from the vocals to the guitar chops to the guitar hook, and then back to the vocals once we hit the verse. Let's roll through it and listen. Very nice. Make sense, guys?
Beautiful.
You with me?
Great move.
You with me?
The Kramer tape crew just
Oh, it's
kind of
yeah.
rode
Kramer
in
tape.
like the riders of Rohan, and we just like took over.
For the win. Kramer tape for the win.
I love Kramer tape on vocals, actually. If you want a little grit on there, beautiful for vocals as well.
Let's play with it. Let's play with it tomorrow.
Parallel compressed.
Take a break. Take a
And
break.
then there's just a little bit more. Not too much
Take a
more.
break. Yeah. Look, here's what we're going to do. Check this out. Because this is one of my favorite things. And one of my favorite things to do is bus processing. Just big picture, these big broad brush strokes across groups of instruments to bring a little bit of magic to the mix. So I'm going to add that to my list here. We're going to get a little bit more kick punch. We're going to fix this alarm, and then we're going to get into some bus processing. Waves has some really cool stuff that we can play with today for bus processing that I'm pretty excited about. So
You guys cool with that? You want to go farther? Should we do some more today?
yeah, as long as this is okay with you guys.
I mean,
I'm sitting here getting excited and excited about this stuff, but it only
well,
matters what you guys want to
Yeah.
absorb.
some people have to come back and watch it, but I think if you guys are down, let's do another little section and then we'll call it.
Cool. Oh my goodness.
See you in 5.
What time is it? What time did we start? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're at about 3-hour mark right now. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, we
Gotcha. All right.
did a lot of explaining today, so we haven't actually
Got
done
a lot
things. It didn't
to
need
do.
it. We explained a lot.
Okay. Bringing up a timer, not just any timer, but my favorite timer, the Google timer. You guessed it. Here it is. 5 minutes on the clock, guys. Stand up, stretch, do some jumping jacks. Be back in a few. Boom. Aye. Oh! Any questions before we jump back in, guys? Man, time flies when you're eating fries. Quick question, how you feeling? Feel great. Feel great. How'd you get to be so cool? I was born this way. When you get to the bus, can you do a quick overview? What that is, how it works? Like a bus? Like buses? A bus, you can Google that. You can Google like buses, sends, and aux tracks. There's a ton of stuff out there on that. Ton of stuff. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Y'all giving away a plugin from Waves? I think so. Rob's at least working on it. We'll keep you posted in the school group. That must have been a fun experience for you, Nathan. Give away BB Magma? I don't think they're giving that one away. I think they know what what they got there. They know what they got there. They're not giving that thing away. Lil Tubes was free? I don't know. Maybe?
I haven't tried Silk yet.
Temporarily? Lil Tubes is temporarily free. If Lil Tubes is temporarily free, guys, like take a second and go get it. Yeah.
Was that a
Because it is, yeah, Lil Tube. Lil Tube is one of the Magma ones. It's just a one knob saturator. It's got 3 sensitivities. It just kind of like gives you a taste of the Magma saturation. Lil Tube, it's called. Lil Tube from Waves. I don't know if they're offering it for free. I have no idea. Anyway. Any other kind of like last quick questions? Quick questions. Before we jump in here? Kick punch. No, good. Good. Let's go. Chuck says. All right, let's go then. Here we go. Kick punch.
Is there a reason your lights are a mood tonight? Proving yourself in a kid.
Yeah, I just want a little bit of punch out of that thing. You know? Any suggestions?
Punch me. Show how you can get it with a compressor, maybe? Since we talked about that.
Go slow, fast. I mean, that's knocking pretty good right there.
Oh, we're trying to bring up the girth, the body of the waveform. So we're attacking fast, but releasing slowly. to bring out the tail more, the body of the transient.
Slow attack, right?
Yep.
Slow attack. So I'm actually trying to bring out the click, the punch of the transient.
He's a transient designer.
Knock.
Totally.
Paul says Yuri got it wrong. You know, so the knobs are wrong. Let's get that right. It's written there. Yeah, so guys, just I'm seeing a lot of this in the chat. The knobs are backwards on an 1176. So the lower the value, the slower the attack. The higher the value, the faster the attack. Right? So slow is on the left, fast is on the right. Just how they work. I don't know why. So
I heard it.
yeah, you guys should be hearing like just a general tightness. We're accentuating more of we're allowing with the slow attack, you allow the peak to pass through slightly, and then the compressor turns down the tail end of the signal. You know, the sustain. So it gives it kind of like that effect of it feeling like tighter and more focused. Let's listen to it in context.
Pause all the chores and let me take you into my arms. Feel the very reason I exist, the very reason I exist. Kitchen lights are a mood tonight. Proving you're something I can't resist. Proving you're something pause all the chores and let me take you into my arms. Feel the very
A little bit knockier, right? Knock, knock, knock.
pause all the chores.
I'm actually going to roll back the mix knob just a little bit. See if we can kind of blend it just a touch more.
Pause all the chores and let me take you into my arms. Feel the very reason I exist, the very reason I exist. Pause all the chores and let me take you into my arms. Feel the very reason I exist, the very reason I exist. Kitchen lights are a mood tonight. Proving you're something I can't resist. Proving you're
So that's one way to do it. Somebody suggested smack attack. I want to see that. So this looks like standard transient shaper, right? Where we've got control over the attack of the kick and control over the sustain of the kick. And then, you know, waveforms in terms of attack. Do we want this to be like, you know, shorter or longer, you know, shorter or longer sustain control? So if we wanted more punch, we could either turn down the sustain or we can turn up the attack.
All the chores, and let me take you into my arms. Feel the very reason now.
That's it for me right there. It has a little bit less of a knock to it. It maintains its tone and just kind of pokes through a little bit more.
Pause all the chores, and let me take you into my arms. Feel the very reason now.
I didn't like what the CLA, the 1176 was doing with the low end. It was kind of soaking up all the low end, which is why I tried to back off the mix knob to try to retain some of that body and that thump. But this does a good job of pushing the transient just a little bit more forward and maintaining kind of that low end, that thump and that body of the kick that it was designed to have. Right. That was my thought process here anyway. That's good. That's good news, Paul. Finally, we agree on something.
Pause all the chores, and let me take you into my arms. Feel the very reason I exist. The very reason I exist. Kitchen lights are a mood tonight. Proving you're something I can't resist. Proving you're something I. Pause all the chores, and let me feel the very reason.
And just because I'm a metal guy, I'm going to give me a little bit more punch on the snare. Right there. Thank you.
Kitchen lights are a mood tonight. Proving you're something I can't.
Hear the difference? I just pumped up that fundamental, that 150 hertz kind of area. That's where the snare was like really kind of like punching you in the chest, right? I'll do it in solo. Right?
Pause all the chores, and let me take you into my arms. Feel the very reason I exist. The very reason I exist. Kitchen lights are a mood tonight. Proving you're something I can't.
Dialing that back just a little bit so it doesn't take over the vocal. And I think that sounds good.
Pause all the chores, and let me take you into my arms. Feel the very reason I exist. The very.
Oh man, I'm excited to do some bus processing here. All right, we're almost there. We got some more kick punch. We got that taken care of. The alarm is alarming.
Unrealized. Pause all the chores. Will I ever put on the charm?
Here's that alarm.
And let me take you into my arms. The bottle sparks that I don't
Fair.
want to miss. I don't want. Kitchen lights are a mood tonight. I don't want to miss. I don't want. Kitchen.
That's this, right? Pop that on another track. Bring it down. What if we just like swing it to a side? Oh, that is jarring.
It's almost to one of the level of maybe if I mute it, they won't notice. It's almost there for me. Supposed to be super subtle.
What? That was supposed to be super subtle, he said. Okay, that's kind of where I was going with it. Kind of like there. Oh, just kind of like basically lo-fied. Okay, that's easy enough. That'll do it. That'll do it. Maybe put some space around it or something. Okay, you say so.
Dun, dee, dun, 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 dee.
Ooh, what's that retrofy? Yeah. I want to try that out. Retrofy, where is it? There it is. Ooh, there's a mid to mono to stereo. Do we have some cool effects we can play with? Look at this thing. This looks like something I would buy immediately. Doesn't it, Caleb?
Mhm. I wish I had the hardware unit just for the look.
Look at this thing.
Jake likes one knob plugins. This has
Yeah,
too many knobs.
this has too many knobs for me. What's cassette and vinyl? Let's check that one out. This is cool. That's not the one. Let's do not noise. Man, I don't even know. This might be a little too vibey. Oh, that's cool. We've got like a styler, like 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. That's sick. This is cool. All right, I get it.
So far, it sounded better just with your mid-fi EQ and
Yeah. So, okay, I'm changing the device. So this should be flat. Yeah, okay. Okay. And we do have a mix. So, okay, great. So the noise track, here it is, noise track. You can turn that all the way down. So this should just be the signal, unaffected. Okay, great. And then we have filters right in the retro phi. Boom. How easy that is.
Wow, you did the same thing. Cool.
I don't want kitchen lights. I don't wish. I don't want kitchen lights.
Want to swing that?
I don't want kitchen lights. Bottle sparks.
You know what? I don't want that. I don't want to do that. But
Sparks that I don't want wish. I don't want kitchen lights.
I don't want to do that at all. Just want to put it in the center.
I don't want kitchen.
Maybe slightly to the right.
I don't want kitchen lights. I remove tonight.
Fine. Got our alarming alarm. Cool. Great. Let's consolidate. Got our mix. Bus processing. What do you think, guys? Ones for bus processing. All right. Beep, beep. Any questions before we move into this? Any quick questions? What about the base? What about the base? What about the base?
It's all about that base.
Do you have yeah, do you have specific things about the base that you would touch? I see a tool. Our base. Would you sidechain the base? I don't know. Let's listen. I can hear the bass pretty clearly and the kick pretty clearly. I don't know. I don't think I would do anything to the bass here. Kind of depends on the references, you know? But I think it sounds pretty good. If we want to take a look, maybe at the pads. If there's any, it doesn't sound like there's fighting going on, is the point. You know, we got the bass kind of sitting right here in this area. And let's go to the kick. Kick sitting down here in its own area. So I don't really, you know, I don't really hear any issues. We could enhance some things, you know, which we'll probably naturally do when we do our bus processing.
And
But-
sometimes it's easy to think,
I can hear it.
do I need to do something here? I must. But, you know, what are
Sounds
our
good.
answers? It sounds good. It is good.
Sounds good is good. You know, does it sound good according to your client's references? You know, is it hitting all those marks? I don't really see a need to mess with it, you know.
Save it for another day, I said, but she don't listen. That's how I like it. Habits that I need to kick, like feeling sorry. Couldn't give you the world just yet. Solid stone.
I hear the kick bass relationship sounds good to me. They're not kind of like trampling on each other. There's plenty of room for both of them to breathe.
I'll stay here for a spell while the clock is winding down on us. Pause all the chores.
It sounds actually pretty consistent. Given we have some transients kind of poking out every now and then,
Reason I exist, every reason I exist.
which we can just handle on the bus. Let's do it. Let's jump in. I mean, that's my reasoning. Any, other engineers might do something different. Some engineers want to pay attention to every track. For me, I just like to move through this with a lot of intention. If I don't hear an issue with something, then I'm not gonna bother. Time is money here. Which brings me to a point I wanted to make. I saw you guys asking questions about, do you prefer wet tracks or dry tracks as a mix engineer? I prefer both. I prefer both. I like to have, I actually prefer to start with the wet tracks, so anything that reverb is baked into and delay is baked into, because I know it was very intentional on the producer's part. It's part of the sound design, fine, great. But if I need more flexibility, then I'll dive into the dry tracks and bring a track in, apply spatial processing as I see fit, right? But, why would I do the extra work? Just along those same lines, this is what reminded me of it. Why would I do the extra work if the producer's already done it and done it to a level that they're, that meets their vision, right? Or the artist's vision or the client's vision. If the client signed off on a production based on certain effects, then it's my responsibility to kind of remain true to whatever the client approved,
Yeah, I usually almost always use most 95% the wet, and then I'll maybe have one or two that I use from the dry. Depending on the track, obviously, how well it was done, but
sometimes even vocals, sometimes if I get wet vocals with stuff baked into it and it sounds great, then I'm not going to touch them. Like it's already there. What's the point? I'm just like spinning my wheels for what? Just to have my fingers in it? That's kind of, I don't know. That's kind of an ego thing, or just like not having intention.
yeah, if I can do it better, I'll do it. But if it already sounds great, it's no point. Especially even like on rap or hip hop vocals when they have the tune built in and all that kind of stuff. That's just production. That's like a very clear vision they're trying to express to me that I'm gonna honor, Unless it sounds bad, and then I'll fix it.
Yep. Anyway, let's jump in here. We've been at it for quite a while. We're going to do some quick bus processing, then we'll call it a day. Okay, we can approach this in a few different ways. I think I'm just going to go kind of track by track here. Gonna add some character and like some vibe here, man. Some saturation. I just want to magma everything. That's
Down.
what I
Down, boy.
that's what I want to do.
They have channel emulations, right? Channel strip emulation.
Yes, they do.
Save it for
So smooth. So it's giving girth to the kick, but it's killing the snare. You know, it's doing something strange to the snare transient. So I'm not going to use that. Yeah, I'm going to check out the NLS stuff.
Oh, that's a different company.
The J37? No, that's Waves, isn't it?
Oh yeah, they have one too. I was thinking UAD has one.
Yeah. But I was thinking like they have this, the
Yeah.
NLS channel strips. Yeah. So I think if I'm remembering this correctly, Spike is SSL, Mike is API, Nevo is Neve. Is that right?
I think you're right.
Can anybody
At least one.
fact check me on that? One, Chuck says. Chuck's been saying a lot. Chuck knows the Waves plugins. I've been getting like all my, when his name pops up, I know he's talking about. Whenever I ask for suggestions, his name is popping up in there. So let's fool around with these. This is, these are just kind of like driving the signal through these different types of console emulation. Oh. No, this is not an API, is it? I guess it is. It's definitely a Neve, and this is definitely not SSL. Chandler? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what the knob,
Chandler.
that's what the knob looks like, right?
Chandler.
These are not
or,
API. Yeah.
Something
It's not-
King. What are those?
Mike is an EMI. Really? Huh. Okay.
Cool.
MCI? Somebody says MCI? EMI, MCI? I don't know. Anyway, what matters is what they sound like. Yeah, YMCA? Too loud for you? So what I like to do is just crank it. I'm just gonna, bam, I'm just gonna drive the heck out of it and pay attention to what's happening to the kicks and snares. So very thumpy. The mic is very thumpy. Yeah, the Nevo is for me. It's not. What's that?
All day, I said.
Yeah. For me, the reason why I'm going with this one is because it's not sucking the punch out of the snare, right? The spike seems to be sucking the punch out of the snare. And the Nevo doesn't, right? Let's see what it's like at lower.
Neve on everything.
Tracks.
Forever.
And then I'm going to bring the volume back up here, guys. So heads up. Tighter low end on the spike. Much tighter low end. A little bit looser on the Neve, but I think that fits for the genre. Fits for the track. It's a vibey track, man. Like there's a lot of room for kind of imperfections and like vibe here and character. Right. Without. And with, we're going to gain stage that a little bit. Is that life? Is that life? Yummy. Saturation, dude. I'm telling you. It's magical. What is this? Is this a mic pre instead of a console? Is that what that is? Definitely. They must switch this over to a mic pre instead of a console. That's what Devon likes. Somebody said try putting 2 or 3 on top of each other, like these NLSs. That's what Devon likes to do.
Well, and the
Like-
Beatles used that for a ton of their saturation on their guitars. They would just overdrive that Neve channel into another Neve, and that was that all that Revolution guitar sound, the dirtier stuff when they started to do more drugs and stuff. That was all Neve into Neve.
Cool. All right. Well, that just about does it for that track. I might do a little bit more clipping here, just to save on the energy. Somebody said Waves has inside of the infected mushroom pusher. There's a clipper. Look at this thing. Look at this thing. Would you look at it?
Just look at it. Would you look at it?
Would you look at it? Would you look at that?
Just look at it.
Look at that. Would you look at it? Ah, here it is. Here's the clipper. What? Okay, I'm bringing the volume back up now. It's not transparent enough for me. That one, the clipper in there.
Yeah, there was something else going on there. Something else that was on, I think.
Waves X click. X click. Chucks says. Can always rely on you, Chucks. Can you hear my daughter? Can anybody hear that?
No.
I just hear, ah, ah. Stairs.
This looks like a clipper.
This looks great. What is this doing?
Doing that.
I don't like what it's doing to the transients
Kind
there.
of like a clipper.
No. No, not for me. Let's just get a small little chunk.
How much we saving there?
Oh, I don't know yet. Let's see. It's soaking up a little bit too much low end. Back off. You know what? I'm going to turn the oversample up. Just a couple decibels saving there. Just a deci Bessie. Cool. That's all I'm going to do with that. And actually, I think that's probably all I'm going to do with most of these. Check this out. Even if we just copy this channel strip over, you know, let's just copy that over to all the instrument buses. Check this out. Dude, that's magical.
Just life.
Magical, right? It's very subtle, but it's that harmonic content.
Ears love imperfection. We detect perfection and it sounds sterile to us. The reason we love analog, the reason we love harmonics is it adds the chaos of electrical signals running over circuits causing invariabilities, and our ears just love it. We love the sound. It's interesting to our ears.
And that's just with one. You know, that's just throwing each group through console emulation. The same console emulation, pushing each channel through a Neve, right? You can mix and match these as much as you want. You can, you know, toss a console through another console, fine. You know, I typically I'll just do one console across, and I find that that's kind of like a nice sweet spot for me. Personally, I don't really go down the rabbit hole there. You know, I have a few consoles that I like to kind of experiment between. And check this out. I think these are all grouped now, right? So if we switch one, they should all switch, right? If we're all on the same group. I thought they would all switch. Maybe not. No. Maybe not. I thought they would all switch. But you can assign it to groups. I don't really know why it's not working, but oh, VCA tab. Look at that. There it is. I'm not going to dig into that right now, but you could assign them to groups and just kind of, when you switch one console over, it'll switch them all. Yeah, you need to add the master NLS. That makes sense. Put it on your like your mix bus or something like that. Just a little extra life on top. Well, I think that's where we'll call it today. What do you think, Caleb?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Let me just give you a little bit more to end things off. We've talked a lot about this, so I don't really need to like go too in depth. Of course, we're talking about the end in mind. What do you want to send to a mastering engineer? We were talking a lot about today, saved energy equals loudness later. So assessing those dynamic peaks, which Jake has been doing, just taming those, they're not very useful. They're not adding much information, but they do cause mastering compressors and different things to react. And so if we can tame those in the mix, that's just a mercy for the mastering engineer. They're able to use their tools more correctly and give us more loudness later. Jake has a tool. Like I said, a lot of this is just tools to use in your mix to assess this stuff. Dynamics is a tricky one because you really see the dynamics in the waveform when you bounce everything out to a stereo. So this could be a stereo bounce of a mix that you'd send to a mastering engineer. Mastering engineer is going to look at this and be like, wow, look at all those transients. Those are going to be really hard to work with, but you don't really see that in the mix unless you use a tool that Jake's going to show us right now really quick that can help you see those transients and make sure they're in alignment before you ever send it to a mastering engineer. It can also kind of just help you discover certain things that are going on with the mix, the snare, the bass, something is too much. Then we can assess that.
So look at this.
Free plugin.
This is called Wave Observer by a company called Press Play. And you can stick it on your master bus, put it on your stereo out. And when you play your track, it'll spit out the kind of the transient readings. Pretty cool. So it'll allow you to kind of see if there were any spikes or anything that was inconsistent there. It looks like this is pretty consistent across the board, but you know, if you're looking at this thing and you're seeing, you know, maybe you're seeing one peak that's like way up here and the rest are kind of like short, right? Then that's a pretty good indication that you got a dynamics issue somewhere.
Yep.
Right. And then you would go into the mix. Oh, where does that transient happen? It doesn't happen when, you know, 4 or 5 instruments are all kind of slamming at the same time. Well, how can we control that? You know, how can we get in the weeds on that?
It's not that you don't want any transients, you will, or it'll sound super flat, but you just want, if this wasn't done well, you would see those spikes go up above 6, up into the upper range, getting closer down to towards 9. I've found on Wave Observer between 6 and 9, but closer to 9 is really a healthy kind of place to be. So focus on that. Just another tool you can use. Again, the energy you save now is loudness later.
Yep.
All
Totally.
right. Last thing. your homework now, just like yesterday, not a volume only mix like we did yesterday, but now we're going to use the same tools, frequency tools, dynamic tools, spatial tools. Try the bucket method, try all this stuff out and think of the principles. Let that be a guiding light to you. And if you did the homework yesterday, you should have had notes about where to go after the volume only mix. Check that stuff out, explore it, play with it, have fun, see if it's a useful part or a useful thing that you can add to your process. That's what it's really about. And if you're just starting out, great place to really build a foundation using these tools correctly. So do that stuff. Tomorrow's going to be a huge one. You don't want to miss it. Vocal day. Let's get these vocals sounding really expensive. There's actually a ton we can do with these vocals to just really
Oh
polish.
man, I can't wait.
They already sound great,
Yeah.
but we're going to really make them sound awesome, super expensive, and that'll be worth the time, I think. So come on back.
Yep.
If you need anything in the meantime, just post in the school community. Make sure you're in there. Get to work on this stuff, and we'll just see you all tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's been a good one. You guys are a great, great group.